So apparently, Canada is an artificial country with very little meaning, according to Yves-François Blanchet. He said this on the campaign trail. I want to get your verdict on this because it really pissed me off that he would say this. Like, why would you? Like, it's not the time. You got to read the room, is what I was thinking. But here goes. I'm going to play it off the CTV website here.
If I may, yesterday you said that you were an MP in a foreign parliament.
Yeah.
You are working pretty hard to hold the balance of power of that parliament. Isn't it this the definition of foreign interference?
We are, either we like it or not, part of an artificial country with very little meaning called Canada. Many people in Canada write to me and say, we'd like to have the same as Quebec has.
What the fuck?
As long as we're part of it and we get elected in this parliament, we are entitled to any right and privilege and opportunity being provided by the persons who vote. And I will relinquish none of them. And if it's just a foreign parliament because this nation is not mine. I don't feel more at ease in the Canadian parliament than Mrs. Smith would feel at ease in the Assemblée nationale du Québec.
He says he feels like an MP in a foreign parliament. Says, I said on one of your videos that I don't know why that guy is contesting for prime minister. The truth is he's not contesting for prime minister. He's contesting to be the voice of Quebec. That's what he is. But it doesn't make this any more palatable for me that he's talking about Canada in this light, especially when Trump is saying all this shit about Canada not being a viable country. It pisses me off. Here's my thing though. Obviously Quebec has been the loudest voice for separation of Canada, but they're not the only ones these days talking about separation. Obviously Alberta has been a louder voice talking about Western separation recently. And I know so there's people that watch the channel. I've had comments of people that watch the channel that have been pretty open about the idea of Western Canada or Alberta leaving Canada. Some people have even said Alberta should go join the United States, which is kind of wild when you think about it. But, like, dude, you got to read the room, man. But here's the thing, though. I will say this. Although this annoys me, he's not wrong. And I'll tell you why. Canada has been operating like a bunch of little countries as against being one country. And maybe this is what Mark Carney says when he says we gotta have one economy instead of 13. And that he's correct. And I think Pierre Poilievre would agree. That's Pierre Poilievre's ultimate goal in the end. But it fucking pisses me off. Like, especially imagine you're a person in Alberta getting zero equalization payments. And the province getting the highest equalization payments in Canada is talking about the country not functioning as a country, essentially. That would piss you off. It's like, and he said something like, and he was talking about entitlements and something. Like, we're entitled. Like, bruh. Dude. Like, you gotta read the room, and for me, it's just like, oh, he said this during the debate. Let me see if I remember it correct. If I remember it in the kind of detail that he spoke it, he said something like, oh, like Quebec would be willing to give up equalization payments if Western Canada, if Alberta would embrace clean energy or something like that. Might have been what he was talking about. So, says, how is this guy any different from Trump? I mean, this is a silly statement to make in the climate that we're in here, where our sovereignty as a country is being threatened, and where we're facing what can only be termed as possibly a national unity crisis right now. This is not what you need. This is not. You got to read the room. BB says, but being the loudest doesn't mean the majority. There's a reason Quebec has not separated. The majority of Quebecers, I guess you mean Quebecois there, but Quebecers don't want to separate. Same with Alberta separatists. And BB says, enough with the equalization payments. It isn't Alberta writing the checks to other provinces. It is simply an allocation of federal resources. Well, you say that, but you got to think about this, though. BC has been complaining about the distribution of the equalization payments and the federal transfers for a while. Alberta has had moments where they've actually really been pissed off about that. Like the Western provinces get really not that much, right? Saskatchewan doesn't get that much, if anything. BC close to nothing. Alberta probably nothing, and they're paying their fair share. Like, why is Quebec, who gets 50%? I think that was the stat that I saw. About 50% of the equalization payments leaving the federal coffers, complaining about not feeling Canadian. Like, I mean, I don't know, but equalization payments are obviously paid out because the federal government is trying to ensure that services and remain sort of equal across the country, irrespective of fiscal capacity. Okay, so BB says people are pissed off because they don't understand what it is. They think they are writing a check to other provinces. Okay, maybe you want to explain that a little bit. Okay, explain what you mean. Because I don't want to call you on something that I haven't properly understood. But you guys get in the comments, especially if you're from Alberta and people on that side of the world have obviously been feeling like this country is not serving them because they want to get their oil to market. They want to get their oil to Eastern Canada. Here's where it gets annoying to me, right? Quebec is they buy oil from the United States from pipelines that go through the United States. Basically, they buy oil from the United States, and essentially they've proceeded to block pipelines here going across Canada, the Energy East pipeline, namely, because they say they don't want it. But there's in my mind, a certain hypocrisy to that. If you're gonna be talk, well, they say it's because the energy it's dirty energy, right? Well, if you're gonna hold that perspective, well, why are you buying oil from the United States? Well, here's the other point I'll make real quick, right? At some point, I think it was Mark Carney during the debate that broached the topic about small modular reactors and nuclear power. And guess what Quebec said? No. They don't want nuclear energy either, right? And if you know anything about about artificial intelligence and some of the energy, the power that we would need in order to power that industry, you'll know that why nuclear energy is probably a very important resource that we need to develop in this country. BB says provinces do not contribute financially to the program. The equalization is. I don't think you're understanding my point, right? BB, you got to understand that those distributions are meant to help the provinces develop their infrastructure and public services and all of that stuff, right? That's what the equalization payments are meant to be, right? So, you're basically telling me that Quebec has more needs than Ontario, for example, which is our biggest province, right? You're telling me that Quebec has more needs than them in the federal government's eye, right? And so where is the I know there's sort of a formula that the government uses to determine who gets what, but when you really deep it down, you realize that the equalization payments is really about making the size of the equalization payments is really about making Quebec happy. Braveheart says Quebec feels like a spoiled child that the parents keep sinking everything into while ignoring obedient kids. To be fair, I wouldn't say Alberta has been obedient recently. They're really pissed off at the moment. Kevin Boyle says Canada is no longer a country we used to know and love. And no, I do not like the direction the Liberals are taking it in. Well, to be fair, if we're being fair about this, Kevin, I don't know that the Conservatives are going to be the ones to unite Canada either, because you got to see a lot of the policies are ones that they're not necessarily Pierre Poilievre have basically scrapped almost every single environmentally friendly initiative in his costed platform. Done. He basically disposed a lot of that, and so obviously that's not gonna go well with indigenous peoples. That's not gonna go well with certainly not Quebec, right? So I don't know what that does for our unity. It favors Alberta and Saskatchewan and parts of Western Canada that want to see those kinds of things, but certainly those provinces that are more in favor, like Atlantic Canada, not just Quebec, that want to see action on climate. Well, you're not gonna easily get them on board. You're certainly not gonna get indigenous peoples on board. BB says, "No, I'm telling you that people in Alberta who are upset about it think that Alberta is writing a check to other provinces. Alberta isn't paying a single dime into the payments." Well, sure. What I am saying, I guess we're making two different points here. I'm saying that it's like having 13 kids. I know that's a wild number to think of, but it's like having let me remove this video for a little while here so that you can see me. It's like having 13 kids, and then you sort of decide that, you know, your second oldest child gets the most allocation of certain resources, of your limited resources, based on the fact that they've said that they'll leave the house unless you unless you up their pocket money. Like, it's kind of the way it is. You can see why people would be annoyed with that. And anyways, I don't want to go too far into that. Kevin Boyle says Quebec is treated like a country. They are treated like a country. You know, I hadn't realized, because I'm not too familiar with Quebec, right? So, but I hadn't realized that they refer to the premier of Quebec as prime minister, like Monsieur Prime Minister, essentially. And that's wild, you know, within the country, you know, that Quebec gets special privileges to the point where, like, the premier is called a prime minister in their own right. That's wild, right? Just Iman says, have I made a prediction about the election yet? Yes, I have. There's a video out on the channel, and what I said was I expect Mark Carney to win. I did tell you, I did make a prediction that Mark Carney would win a minority, but you can go watch the video. I give you all the reasons why I think Mark Carney will win. But I've also said I think he will win a minority, which I think will be interesting from where we are right now. It looks like he's going to win a majority, right? But I think it will be interesting to see if he underperforms his numbers, like I expect he will. But I think he wins. I think Mark Carney wins. But, you know, we talked about how sneaky it was that in the last live we did. We talked about how sneaky it was that Trump is suddenly back as front page news all of a sudden. You know, Trump for a while there it was quiet about Trump, and then I said this, but I know BB doesn't agree with me. We kind of had a little thing about it in the comment section in my last video. Don't worry, BB, don't worry. You're still my guy, dude. You're still my guy. But the fact is that at the moment where the Liberals seem to be going down in the polls, suddenly, and I thought it was suspicious timing, suddenly the CBC goes and asks a question to Trump's press secretary and says something like, why has Trump decided that he's not going to call Canada the 51st state anymore? And I was like, what the bloody hell? Why the bloody hell would the CBC, I mean, go and ask Trump's press secretary after Trump has been quiet himself on the 51st state rhetoric? Now, you can ask about tariffs. You can ask about actual stuff that isn't basically the ballot question right now. No thanks to how the Liberals have leveraged this. And again, I don't hate the player, I hate the game. It is what it is. The Liberals have this opportunity and have used it wisely. In fact, I think someone and I'm going to say something really wild right here. Someone needs to check Mark Carney. At his next medical checkup, I think Mark Carney has a genie up his butt. You know why? I've never seen anybody that's more lucky than Mark Carney. So at his next colonoscopy or whatever, I want somebody to tell me that he's not got a genie up his butt. Because here's the thing. I was expecting I was really expecting that the whole him not giving the people the information about whether Trump called Canada the 51st state during that call with Trump, during that call they had about a month ago, him keeping that from people, I thought that was gonna go against him, and people were gonna be like, "Yo, why would you ever say that? Why wouldn't you be transparent with people?" And since we're basically back in the exact same situation here, where Canada's sovereignty is being disrespected, we have tariffs, then what is the advantage? What is the fundamental advantage that Carney has in this election? His advantage was he was the best negotiator. Well, clearly he's not if we're still in this situation. But I mean, to be fair, if we're balancing this out, he's still in caretaker mode. He's still in caretaker mode. He doesn't have the mandate to go and actually negotiate with Trump. So BB is coming at me again. Okay, we're gonna have this. If you want to have this out live, man, I'm here for you. Come on. Let's get it. Anyways, BB says Harper wanted to give Quebec even more power with the Mitch Lake Accords.